Sharon Brightwell thought she was living every parent's worst nightmare. She received a frantic call from her daughter, crying, desperate, claiming she had been in a car accident and lost her unborn child. The voice begged for $15,000 to avoid criminal charges. Sharon wired the money without hesitation. Only after hanging up and calling her daughter back did she discover the truth. Her daughter was fine. She had never been in an accident. She had no idea her voice had been cloned. Sharon lost $15,000 in a single phone call to an AI-generated replica of her own child's voice. This is not a rare case. This is not an edge case. In the first half of 2025 alone, documented financial losses from AI-enabled deepfake fraud reached $410 million. That is more than the entire period from 2019 to 2024 combined. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how these scams work, who is being targeted, and the 5 steps that will protect your family before the call comes. Welcome to the AI Endgame. There are 4 AI financial scams operating at scale right now. Each one targets a different person in your family. All 4 are documented, active, and growing. The first targets your parents and grandparents. Scammers harvest voice samples from social media, TikTok videos, Instagram Reels, YouTube clips. 3 to 5 seconds of audio is sufficient. The AI reconstructs a complete voice profile with up to 95% accuracy. They call the grandparent, manufacture a crisis, a car accident, an arrest, a medical emergency, and request immediate cash via wire transfer or gift cards. The FBI issued a formal warning in 2025 about cases where scammers simulate kidnappings using cloned voices, demanding ransoms between $2,500 and $15,000. The emotional trigger, hearing a voice you love in distress, bypasses logical verification within seconds. By the time the brain asks whether it is real, the heart has already answered yes. The second targets you at work. In early 2024, an employee at engineering firm Arup joined what appeared to be a routine video conference with the company's CFO and several senior executives. He was given financial instructions. He authorized 15 transactions totaling $25 million to accounts in Hong Kong. Every single person on that call was a deepfake. The CFO, the executives, the entire meeting, generated from publicly available footage and audio. The incident was not discovered for weeks. The third targets your retirement savings. Steve Beauchamp was an 82-year-old retiree who drained his retirement fund and invested $690,000 because a video of Elon Musk endorsing an investment platform looked completely real. It was AI. He lost everything. He was not careless. He was not naive. He was targeted by a system specifically engineered to be indistinguishable from reality. Celebrity deepfake investment scams have caused $401 million in documented losses, the single largest category of AI financial fraud on record. The fourth targets everyone. AI-generated bank impersonation calls arrive sounding exactly like a representative from your specific bank, reporting suspicious activity and requesting immediate credential confirmation. The voice passes every credibility test. The website they direct you to is a perfect visual replica. The login details you enter are captured the moment you type them. 4 scams, all active, all growing, all operating on the same principle, that you will trust what you hear and see from someone you recognize. The instinct, after hearing this, is to believe it would not work on you, that you are too careful, that you would know. That instinct is exactly what makes these scams work. These are not designed to fool careless people. They are designed to fool careful ones. The psychological mechanism is not a failure of intelligence. It is the exploitation of trust. the most fundamental feature of human communication. Psychologists have documented what they call the override effect. When a voice carries the sonic signature of someone your brain recognizes as safe, a child, a spouse, a parent, the emotional response activates before the analytical mind engages. The familiar voice bypasses the brain's logical security centers entirely. By the time you think to question it, you have already begun to respond. The scams are also engineered around urgency. Every scenario involves a crisis that requires immediate action. This is deliberate. Urgency suppresses the verification impulse. A person given 30 seconds to prevent their grandchild from going to jail does not stop to cross-reference phone numbers. The data confirms this is working at scale. 77% of people targeted by AI voice scam calls lost money. Not 20%, not 50%, 77%. More than 3 in 4 people who receive these calls are successfully defrauded. And the technology is accelerating. The number of deepfakes online is growing at 900% annually. What required sophisticated software 2 years ago now costs $20 and takes an afternoon. By the end of 2026, cybersecurity experts project that the majority of all financial scams will involve AI-generated voice or video. That is not a prediction about the future. That is a description of a trajectory that is already in motion. You might expect that banks and financial institutions have systems in place to catch this. The reality is more complicated and more alarming. When a victim authorizes a wire transfer, even one triggered by a deepfake impersonation of their grandchild, the transaction is technically authorized. Most banks will decline to reimburse losses on authorized transactions regardless of how that authorization was obtained. The legal framework has not kept pace with the technology. Victims in the majority of documented cases have recovered nothing. Law enforcement faces a structural problem. The operations behind these scams are frequently run from overseas criminal networks, some operating from human trafficking compounds in Southeast Asia, where victims are coerced into running scam infrastructure. Jurisdiction is fragmented. Recovery is rare. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center processed over $16 billion in reported fraud losses in 2024 alone. Prosecutions remain a fraction of that number. And the platforms that host the source material, the social media videos that provide the raw audio for voice cloning, have no current obligation to prevent their content from being used to clone users' voices. The audio of your child's voice exists on the open internet. It is accessible to anyone, and the tools to weaponize it are commercially available. The practical conclusion is straightforward. Institutional protection is insufficient. The defense has to live at the family level, and it has to be in place before the call comes, because after it comes, it is too late to build it. 5 steps, specific, practical, and designed for this exact threat. Step 1. Establish a family code word tonight. A single word or short phrase that only your immediate family knows. Something that would never appear in a social media post or casual conversation. Any caller claiming to be a family member in an emergency must provide the code word before you take any action. Any caller who cannot provide it is not who they claim to be. This single step neutralizes the grandparent scam entirely. Step 2. Implement the callback rule for all emergency calls. If you receive any call involving a request for money, regardless of how urgent, regardless of how real the voice sounds, hang up and call the person back directly, using a number already saved in your phone. Not a number provided by the caller, not a number texted to you during the call, a number you already have. If the emergency was real, they will answer. If it was AI, the callback ends it immediately. Step 3. Audit your family's social media audio exposure. Any public video in which a family member's voice is clearly audible is source material for voice cloning. This is particularly relevant for teenagers and young adults who post regularly. The practical step is not to delete everything. It is to set accounts to private so that voice content is accessible only to approved followers rather than any AI system that can crawl public content. Step 4. Never authorize any financial transaction based solely on a phone call or video call. This applies to your personal life and especially to any professional context where you have access to company funds. The Arup case was not an outlier. A 2025 Deloitte study found that 25.9% of executives report their organizations have already experienced at least one deepfake incident. Any request for financial movement that arrives via call must be verified through a separate, independent communication channel before action is taken. Step 5. Talk to your older family members specifically about this threat. Seniors are the primary target demographic because they are statistically more likely to have savings, less likely to be familiar with voice cloning technology, and more likely to act immediately on a perceived family emergency. The most protective thing you can do for an elderly parent or grandparent is to have a direct conversation about these scams before they receive a call. Walk them through the code word system. Tell them to hang up and call back. Tell them that hearing a familiar voice is not proof that the call is real. That conversation takes 15 minutes. It could save them everything. Sharon Brightwell did not get her $15,000 back. The transaction was authorized. The bank declined to reimburse it. She did what any parent would do when their child called in crisis. She helped. The people who built the tool that took her money understood exactly that she would do that. They built it to exploit it. Deloitte projects that AI-enabled financial fraud will reach $40 billion annually by 2027. That is not an abstract statistic. That is the trajectory of a technology that is currently outpacing every legal, institutional, and technical defense built to stop it. The code word takes 30 seconds to create. The callback rule takes 30 seconds to explain. The conversation with your parents takes 15 minutes. Do all three before this video ends. Subscribe. Next week, we cover how AI is being used to manipulate what you believe about the world. The propaganda machine your social media feed became without anyone asking your permission. The information exists. The only question is whether it reaches people in time.